very good Wednesday morning to everybody tuning in. A little bit of a late notice that the show was, in fact, going forward here at 11 a.m. Eastern. And before we say a special good morning to Jake Landsberg in the chat, I just want to reinforce what may have been missed earlier on. If you're scrolling up, beginning next week, the show will move to Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So it'll be after lunch on the East Coast. And the reason, Derek, that the show is moving a little bit later in the day is because we are seeing a little bit of difficulty here with finding widely available props at this time in the morning, as the first week and a half of the season, 2 weeks, has now kind of shifted a little bit later. So it's kind of getting a little messy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. This time of day, we're not seeing a ton of props, and the props that are out have kind of moved since the morning numbers. So we're kind of, I feel like, in a tough spot right now. So I think moving it later gives us a wider option and should definitely open some things up for us.
And I think it'll definitely open opportunities for more books being available too. We're seeing now, because there are a couple books that operate on specific prop providers that do a number of books collectively. And so if those providers are going later in the day, a lot of books tend to be later too. So by going at 1 p.m. Eastern and Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, it'll be bigger cards and it'll be a little bit later. So there'll be more books. I think it'll make for a better release for everybody. It seems like everybody in the chat, especially those on the West Coast, enjoying that. In terms of the Monday show, it was another heartbreaker. And I know there was some folks lamenting with us watching, but also again this morning. I'm not sure if producer Brady has the 0-2 count pitch. Yeah, this was this is what we're dealing with in the pitcher strikeout market at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot of back and forth between how umpires are calling games, but here's the 0-2 pitch that would have got the over. He was pulled immediately after. This is now 3 strikeout props in a row where we've been on the wrong side of the hook. It's just a few days in a very long season, but it's awfully annoying when you're seeing stuff like this continue to go against us.
Yeah, it is. We've had some bad beats, guys needing one more strikeout, having calls like that, having all these 0-2 counts and just not getting the calls. It's a long season though. Like you said, we're dealing with a very small sample size at this point. Over the long run, these have been very profitable, and it's going to turn around. It's just, it's not fun when those are the calls that happen.
The ups and downs of betting baseball through the spring and summer months. Always a fun ride one way or the other. So with all of that said, moving on from the Monday show, leaving that in the past, getting on to the first release today. There will be 2. So for those of you who jump on or jump off after the first one, stick around. 2 of them today. We will say that you're most likely to find the best prices on these at Caesars or MGM. And it's important to know that we're not just going to give out the pick. For those of you who are watching for the first time, we are going to, as usual, follow the BatX release procedure. I'll start by telling you what the game is. That is your cue to open up your sportsbook app, go through, find the game that is mentioned. I will then tell you what prop market we are betting on. You can scroll through the menu, get to that prop market. And then for each of these, I will tell you who the player is, what team he plays for, and the bet, each at the same time, because these, as we have seen, move very, very quickly once they're given out. So we'll do step 3, 4, and 5 together today for both of the releases. With all that said, let's get to Wednesday. All ready to go, Derek?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, so we will start off at Caesars, which is the best price that we saw 5.5 minutes ago for this one. And the game is the Miami Marlins at the Washington Nationals. Marlins Nationals. So we'll give everybody a couple of seconds here to scroll through and open up the Marlins Nationals game. And again, the best price that we found is at Caesars. And this prop is available a few places. I will say, for the many of you that do play at FanDuel, you will not find this prop at FanDuel. So if you are there, that is your cue to jump out of FanDuel and get to another app. The market that we will be betting into for the Miami-Washington game is pitcher outs, not strikeouts, pitcher total outs. So as we can see here at Caesars, it is the total outs recorded. And in 7 or 8 seconds, I will get to the pitcher and the bet. The first release for today is Eric Fedde over 15.5 total outs recorded at minus 115. We're going with Eric Fedde over 15.5 total outs recorded. Curious for those of you following along, where were you betting this? What odds were you seeing? And what were you able to get? And knowing this is, again, why we are moving the show to 1 p.m. beginning next week. We'll have a little bit more availability. This will be a good gauge to see what this is like at this time, but I think it's a pretty good indicator that going later is the right choice. Seeing Matt Ryan and Sam Hebert, I gave it the French accent, minus 115 at MGM as well. Derek, when we're looking at Eric Fedde, over 15.5 is now up to 16.5, minus 20 at Caesars. What were you seeing here with Fedde? What makes you like the over?
Yeah, so the bat has him projected for about 18. So the over looks pretty good here. The risk with Fedde is that he's not an especially good pitcher. So if he gets shelled, he gets pulled early. But he's facing a below average Marlins offense. So this is a plus matchup for him where he should, do well enough to be able to stay in the game. And when he stays in the game, he's generally allowed to throw a lot of pitches. His baseline pitch count last year was, I think, like 98 pitches or something like that. He's basically fully built up. In his first start this year, when nobody was built up, he still was able to throw 5 innings. So I think by his 4th start, he should be able to go beyond here, again, as long as he doesn't get rocked. The projection sees the chances of him not getting rocked and going deeper, to be better than what this line suggests.
So 15.5 outs, if I'm doing my math right here on the spot, that means we're going to need him to get into the middle of the 5th inning. Can you confirm or deny that my multiplication is in fact on the spot this morning?
Yeah, he needs to enter the 6th inning and get at least 1 out.
All right. So we are hoping for a Fedde start that goes into the 6th inning. Like that one, I think it's an interesting look. And I know texting back and forth over the last little bit, these markets have appeared a little bit more frequently with a little bit bigger of an edge than the strikeout prop market, which has been pretty volatile. And there's been some success there too. So good to see that Fedde over 15.5 total outs is in fact in play. Moving on to the second release today. And for the likes of Scott Sherwood and Matt Ryan, as well as Logan Quinton, who were at MGM for the first one, I would say stick at MGM for this one as well. That is where we saw the best price on this prop before coming on air, and that is where we would recommend to do it. And it is for the game of Kansas City at Chicago. So it is a prop in the Royals-White Sox game, which for those of you who are on the West Coast and working, you will get to follow the MLB game day on the MLB.com website and see how this one progresses throughout the game. So to give you some entertainment while you are sitting at the desk, for those of you on the East Coast, you'll get a little bit of that likely before the ride home. So this will be a fun one to follow here on the day game. Royals at White Sox is the game. A few more seconds to get there before we move into the market. The market that we will be betting into is player stolen bases. One of Derek's favorite markets at the moment, as well as a lot of good stuff coming from the BatX for everything relating to player stolen bases. Give everybody another 5 to 10 seconds to get to the stolen bases market for Kansas City, Chicago. And we will go with the bet, player, and team all together at once in just a couple of seconds. The second release for tonight is Whit Merrifield over 0.5 stolen bases plus 625. For those of you who are at another book, if you're seeing the yes on a stolen base, that is the same bet. That is the same market. We are betting on Merrifield to steal a base plus 625. Let us know, where were you seeing it? Where were you betting it? Again, if you were having difficulty finding these, at 1 p.m. Eastern beginning next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, we'll be able to maneuver with some markets that are much more widely available. So again, if this was a one-off show, in general, all season, we've done really well. I know these two were a little bit specialized, but next week, things will be a lot easier. Whit Merrifield over half a stolen base plus 625. Derek, tough to give like a detailed explanation, but how big of a difference you've seen with this one relative to the projections?
Yeah, this one's a really big difference relative to the projection. 625 was the line we opened at, right?
Yep.
So the implied projection at 625 is 0.13 stolen bases. The bat projects 0.23. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's big. It's going to win about 22% of the time here, but the odds you're getting, 6-1 make this a really, really profitable bet in the long run. The biggest issue with Merrifield here is that he's facing a good pitcher in Dylan Cease, but this is a guy who, once guys are on base against him, and we see this with good pitchers plenty of times, he's fairly easy to steal against. This is an above average stolen base matchup, assuming Merrifield gets on base. So that's what we're really hoping for here. And the odds are certainly there, for that chance of happening.
Is this a similar situation to what we saw a week ago with Starling Marte, who was ultimately thrown out? Another one of the many bad beats we sort of suffered here in the last few days, where it's a great opposing pitcher. That urgency to steal kind of increases when you get on base to move the guy over.
Yeah, we do see that sometimes, because it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think it was Marte against Rodon last week.
Yep.
Rodon, obviously a really good pitcher, but struggles allowing stolen bases. I mean, Marte was like thrown out by this much.
So close.
So Cease is not as easy to steal on as Rodon is, but it's still a favorable matchup and kind of a similar setup here.
Fantastic. And one thing I will say for everybody still sticking around, there are other stolen base props that were identified this morning, both to the yes and to the no, that provided some value from the bad X, but the lines were not widely available. And so I think the intention was, before we came on, and why there was some delay, was there were going to be multiple releases for stolen bases all together at once. But because of the availability, we didn't give those out. We'll see how it goes throughout the rest of the morning and the afternoon. If there is a situation where a little bit later they are widely available, we will tweet those out. So do keep an eye on Derek's Twitter account at Derek Carty, as well as my own. If something comes up today where we can tweet it out, we will let everybody know. But important to remember, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, the show will move later, so things are a little bit more widely available for anyone that had issues getting either of these bets today. But for now, we will root on Eric Fedde over 15.5, as well as Whit Merrifield to get a stolen base. 2 releases for tonight, and keep an eye on Derek's Twitter. Appreciate everybody for joining us here today, and we will see you for another show on Friday.